This video lecture supplements a workbook for Beck's Introduction to SQL Programming, the Pelican Companion. The corresponding textbook is Beck's Introduction to SQL Programming, that Pelican database book. The workbook and printed copy of the companion textbook may be purchased from lulu.com. You may download the textbook for free in ebook format from beckplanet.com/books. Important note on SQL Server and MySQL. The material presented supports both the SQL Server and MySQL environments. Where differences in SQL dialect and environment arise, solutions for both environments will be demonstrated. Where the SQL code is common across environments, only one environment is used for demonstration, as the code runs identically in the other environment. Chapter 1, Parallel Exercises, Solution Walkthrough with Commentary. Preparation, make certain you have connected to your DBMS, SQL Server, or MySQL using your query client, for example, SSMS or MySQL Workbench. If the Candy database already exists, it's a good idea to start by dropping and recreating it so that everything is in the expected startup state. Run the Candy database creation script appropriate to your DBMS, SQL Server, or MySQL. Review the script execution results to ensure that the database and its data were successfully created. Here we have SQL Server Management Studio running, and a connection has been made to the remote database. We are going to take a look and see that in the databases, the Candy schema already exists. We want to set that back to a factory fresh situation with all the unmodified data that's in the sample data set, so we will drop this database. To do that, we can right-click on it and delete the database. Next, we open the script to create the database with all of its data. Here is the Create Candy database script for SQL Server. We will execute it. Then, we look at the results to see that everything ran without any errors. To see the newly created database in our list of schemas, we simply need to refresh the database view. Then we see that the data has been recreated and is now ready for use. Here we have the MySQL Workbench query client loaded, and it has a connection active to its remote MySQL database server. We take a look under the Schemas tab in the Navigator and see that the Candy database already exists. We would like to make sure that everything is set back to factory fresh, so we will drop that schema. Then, to recreate it, we will open a new SQL script. The script we are looking for is the Create Candy script for MySQL. Open it and execute it. Inspect the results to make sure that there were no errors. And now if we come back and refresh our view of the database schemas, we see that Candy has been restored and is ready for use. Our first 4 queries consist of simple selects of all records in the referenced database table. This serves 2 purposes. First, successfully executing the query confirms that your database schema is installed and populated with the expected data. This will be important for validating your success with the exercises, as it allows you to compare the results from your proposed query solution with the correct expected result. Secondly, it helps you to develop a sense of the characteristics of the sample data, which can help guide you in evaluating the results of your own experiments and exploration of SQL programs you compose in your learning. Let's open a new query window in SQL Server Management Studio. For this exercise, we are simply asked to run query code that is provided. We paste that into the window, execute it, then inspect the results. This query explores the product table. Note that for the queries provided here, that the use statement is reiterated at the beginning of each query. Attentive viewers will notice that it is not actually necessary to reiterate the use statement at the beginning of each query, as once the context has been established by running the use statement one time, the database context remains set to that schema throughout the query session unless changed by a different use statement. For exercise 2, we once again are provided with the query code to execute. We can use our existing query window, highlight the old code, paste in the new code, execute it, and inspect the results. This query explores the order prod table. You will notice that we are using the asterisk or wildcard operator, which is a shorthand way to specify all fields. An identical result could be obtained by enumerating each of the fields of the table as a comma-separated list. Again, in exercise 3, we are provided with the code to execute. We can reuse our query window. Simply highlight the old code and paste in the new code, execute it, and once again, inspect our results. This query explores the orders table. Each of the queries discussed in this lesson involve only one table. This kind of query is referred to as a single table query. In future lessons, you will learn how to join multiple tables in order to generate more complex result sets reflecting the relationships between separate tables of a schema. And for exercise 4, again, we can highlight and reuse the existing query window. Paste over the old code with the new code that we are to run, execute it, and inspect the results. You'll notice that this query looks quite a bit different from the other queries in the exercises so far. Also, there are 2 queries here, one for the SQL Server environment and one for MySQL. The primary difference in these queries is that they work with the system tables. The system tables store information about the different databases that the database management system manages, including the tables that belong to each individual database schema. These queries interrogate the system tables and return the list of tables that have been created on the Candy database. So, running these queries will list all the tables belonging to the Candy database. The need for 2 different queries here, one for SQL Server and one for MySQL, underscores the fact that although both the SQL Server DBMS and MySQL DBMS are relational databases and both use dialects of the SQL language, they are at heart 2 very different software engines, each with its own strengths and limitations. Exercise 5 differs somewhat from our previous exercises. It's going to explore the system tables. The system table structure differs from one database management system to the next, so we will use the structure and query code that is appropriate for SQL Server Management Studio here. We paste the query into place and execute it. This query has asked the system table to provide us with all of the table names from the current Candy database schema. System table information varies in the way it's structured between different database management systems under the covers. Although both SQL Server and MySQL are both SQL databases, they are implemented very differently. Consequently, the system tables work differently between the different database management systems. So we need to run a slightly different query for the MySQL environment, although the query is going to accomplish the same thing. This query is going to interrogate the MySQL system tables, the information schema tables for the Candy database. It's going to enumerate the tables belonging to the Candy schema. Thank you for watching. Please visit beckplanet.com/books for additional free student and instructor learning resources, a free ebook copy of Beck's Introduction to SQL Programming, That Pelican Database book, and to learn more about print editions of the textbook and workbook.